No, I can sleep with this one. Yeah.
Welcome everyone to the March Finance and Performance Meeting. Welcome to anyone watching online. And I'll ask that we all stand and I'll read the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangituki District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. I move that we have received an apology from Leanne Hiroti, our track representative. Do I have a seconder, please?
I have to leave the meeting at 10:30.
Thank you.
Hopefully you've got it over and done.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. We could well do. Seconder, Councillor Wong. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I haven't been notified of any public forum this morning, so moving to item 4, conflict of interest declarations. Does anyone have any conflicts they'd like to declare now? If not, the normal procedure is if we're discussing matters and a conflict arises, please raise it at the time. Confirmation of order of business. Don't believe there's any new items to be added, and the order is unchanged as per the order paper. Item number 6, confirmation of minutes of our previous meeting, and I'll call for any amendments or matters arising. Page 6 of our order paper, page 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Any queries around any of that? Can I have a mover and a second to confirm those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Carter. Seconded, Councillor Sharland. All those in favour? As against? Carried. So, have we got the follow-up item? Cheers.
There were no follow-up actions.
Thank you. No follow-up actions from the previous meetings. So, moving right along to the Chair's report. So a verbal report to you today, and I'd just like to open by thanking our CFO. It can be a challenge for a council like ours to attract the right capability. I'm incredibly thankful, given the mountain of projects on the council table we've got right now, that we don't have the right tree in the right place, but we've got the right CFO at the right time. Thank you very much, and please pass on our appreciation to your team as well.
Thank you very much.
Last week we held some community meetings around local water done well. Thank you to those, particularly in Martin, for attending. Our consultation document is available on our website, and the Mayor has a summary of the implication in his report today. DIA fact sheets may also be helpful. On page 16 of our order paper, the loans by activity table shows, in essence, Three Waters currently represents 60% of our total budgeted debt, comprising some 44 million. This is the biggest change facing our council since the amalgamation in 1989. Please take the opportunity to have your say. This afternoon, we look to approve our annual plan for consultation. So it certainly feels like got a lot of balls in the air. I recommend that my Chair's report, March 2025, be received. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Loudon. All those in favour? Carried. Item number 8 is reports for information. Welcome to the table. We look forward to what you've got to say.
You're welcome to. The first report here is our financial snapshot. Nothing, our borrowing hasn't changed since last report, last month, and we remain within LGA covenants. Apart from that, I don't have anything further to report on the report. If there are any questions.
However, I will draw the attention to our spend and capital, because that remains our area of concern.
So it's particularly shown on page 14. Just talked about in last month, it's basically our ability to deliver our plans budgeted. Councillor Maughan.
Just on the, I'm just looking at the graph on revenue. Sort of go, there's a bit of a dip compared to budget, but I guess it's not in the realm of explaining it over $100,000. Is that just an area? Why would that be?
That's loading our NZTA. Payment for the loan.
Oh, yeah.
So through the chair, there's just that timing and often the lag between getting the work done and then submitting the invoice. Confident that by the end of the year, we will be nicely aligned.
A couple of things I'd like to highlight. Question page 16, in terms of total loans by activity. If I look, for instance, at the water supplies, and if I look at the combined Erewhon, Omatani, Putorino supplies as internal loans, sitting about 100 odd K. Now, one of the difficulties that I want to bring to council's attention is we have the option of transference of assets within local water done well. We would need clarification and an absolute position. I think I know what it should be in terms of the debt transference. It would seem to me unreasonable if you don't transfer the assets, but you're going to attempt to transfer debt without that. So that presumably that 88,000 that's sitting in there for Erewhon and 22 Omatani Putorino 1, we will probably need to tag in some shape or form. Interested in any comments, and Liam, while you're thinking of that, we have built ourselves over time, not by this council, but in terms of previous councils, around the decision not to depreciate the swimming pools, the swim centres, etc. And that is effectively the council decision not to, because it impacts severely on rates. And with that decision is the understanding, absolutely as a community, that if you don't depreciate it, fund it, that when you come to renew or replenish significantly, you're taking it on as per a new activity. So the fact that you have significant sums in those internal loans and loans is attributed because you've had no depreciation schedule against them. And as part of what I'm signalling here, as part of any discussion on whether you repair them or replace them, there should be equally a discussion around whether you should then be depreciated. So I'm just signalling that as a potential discussion for council finances in the future. But I seek any comment from the finance team around those two issues I've raised there.
So through the chair, swimming pools I'll start with. It's an interesting one and they are an extremely costly asset, but much valued asset of our community. So many councils choose to either not depreciate or depreciate at a lower rate, or depreciate and rate for it, but use that to pay off debt, because it's very rare you have the money sitting just in the bank waiting to go ahead and spend on an asset of that nature.
Yep.
So I have worked in councils where we've agreed to depreciate at an older rate rather than the revalued rate when that happens. And I've worked at councils that have chosen to depreciate and charge for paying back of the debt. So it's a council decision, and what we would want to do is, as we make these decisions, make sure we document them well in our financial strategy as we move forward. But I do note from our last financial strategy, when we did the LTP, there was agreement across council to recognise we wouldn't be rate funding all of our depreciation, which is why there's an unbalanced budget. And that's the reality of the world many councils are facing right now. Regarding the water supplies, yes, if we hand over the assets, we hand over the debt. Conversely, if we retain the assets, we retain the debt. One of them, I think under Hunter, I'm pretty sure the chair came and spoke to me about is, yes, we have the debt, but we equally have some cash reserve in that one. And so again, remembering that our settlement is liabilities and assets and whatever the wash up is. So we'd have to have that conversation. Does that answer?
Yes, but a further question. In terms of if we were looking at this as a depreciation schedule, if we significantly invest in some shape or form into the swimming pools, then I'd be interested in looking at whether we depreciate as a flat line depreciation schedule or a different function. In other words, you could say that you could write off the depreciation in years 2 and 3, for example, and instead of flatlining it, have a parabolic curve or some other function.
So
And I think we should be open to those views as well.
I just want to clarify something. We actually depreciate the assets. What we sometimes choose not to do is to rate fund the depreciation.
Correct.
So our book value will always reflect a true flat line life of the asset and depreciate it.
It's the rating function.
Correct. And we can work with council on that every time we do an annual plan and when we do our financial strategy.
Thank you. I'm just essentially, Madam Chair, I'm just signalling a discussion here.
Some councils also choose to rate fund depreciation to the level of the capital spend for that year for that asset, and that's a nice way around it. Plenty of options for us.
Councillor Vaughan.
My question's on number 5, borrowing, 5.2. Given that graph you highlighted about our capital expenditure and our capital expenditure review, you're only signalling reducing the debt from 73 million to 70 million. It just seems not very much to, I can't see how we're going to get 80% of our capital spent done because our 2025 budget was 73 million.
Correct.
I think it just feels that 3 million is not enough to be signalled.
Correct. Through the chair, I know that somewhere in this report I've stated that makes the assumption that we'll spend 80%, which is what has happened when we've met with the different managers. However, we're now about to do a deeper dive, and we will actually, my recommendation to the committee is that we change we reflect what we know we will not be doing this year and transfer that to our annual plan as opposed to carry forward. And that way, as part of that, the finance team do the calculations, we will see the reduction in debt. Right now, because it's all sitting in the budget, it assumes on the whole that we're going to spend that part of it. We now know, have confidence that that's not quite how it will be, and we want to do some work. While everyone's out consulting on the annual plan, we will do our work on what that might look like.
Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
Just with the capital spend falling behind it further. And join that with unbudgeted swimming pool costs in front of us. Do we have enough headroom in our debt sort of portfolio to sort of cope with an unbudgeted expense at the swimming pool?
At this stage, not being across the potential unbudgeted figures, I can't answer that 100% hand on heart, but when I look at our headroom, we are still okay.
Your worship.
Yes, I was going to bring up this issue later in the review under Treasury and debt. So our current debt's sitting at 49 million, leaving a net debt about 35, but projected to be 75 million debt at 30 June. And the comments that councillors made are very real, that we're not going to get anywhere near that position. And it is urgent that we review that. And it does have a significant impact on following year's rates by way of depreciation as well.
Literally, yeah.
So there's going to have to be a reasonable, in my mind, reasonable rejig. And we will also be impacted around the capital decisions that we face when they become apparent. So I was going to make some comments later in the full council report around those issues as well. They're valid comments. That's it.
Councillor Maughan.
There might be already has been explained, but in the total loans by activities, all pools and domains, we have added $10.5 million worth of debt to that category since 30th of June 24. Why would that? Yeah, what's that for?
We did do that in one of our actions, outstanding actions.
I'm probably been explained.
If I can answer that one, that's a life to date balance at 10.5, so life to date figure, it's not an annual number.
No,
As
but
at date,
in that column, you've got external loans allocated as at.
as at, that's not the period ending, it's so that's the actual loan at a point in time versus what we've loaned for the financial year.
But the halls was Tomato Pihi, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was.
We did
It
do
was
the analysis on
historical, yeah,
that.
it was
So the halls is Tomato Pihi.
Yes.
And we always capitalise, so you see that external at the end of a year. So during the year, you're not seeing that. So suddenly you'll see a chunk and at an end of the year, and it's just reflecting when we actually need to go and borrow it externally as opposed to we manage it internally for a period of time.
Yeah, so those extra borrowings would pop up when you add loans to our loans list, Dave.
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Bishop.
No, that'd be sorry, Lawrence, from him. But last one from me on this section is under the sustainability. I think there's often a lot of talk about funding an unbalanced budget. And one council in the South Island just made national headlines around having to restructure their council very, very significantly because of that's their case is a case of the running an unbalanced budget in terms of operating revenue versus operating expenditure. And for us, that's a fairly fine line. And you should be close to 100%. Because if you're rating well above that in an operational sense, you actually have an issue there as well. So coming in close to 100%, 101% is probably a reasonable favourable position for us, even though we're running an unbalanced budget, partially because of CapEx.
Further comments?
One quick one, if I may, and I don't dwell on this, but the comment you made about running a little bit behind on the capital expense, which has subsequent flow-on effects. Worship Mayor is quite right to have a look at our capital works proposal. We do need to try and get that aligned. What level of work are you going to be able to do between now and once we've got this consultation documents that we've got out, and you said you'll be working right in the background, what level of work are you going to be able to do, and how soon can you do it in conjunction with the assets team to be bringing this item through to our next assets either workshop or meeting? Because we had signalled we needed to look at some of our capital works programs. So I'm just trying to check that both arms of the operation are coinciding here.
When's the next asset meeting? Next time. It's having some time with the relevant manager. You need to give us that information because that's the bit that we're missing. It's getting that information, getting it confirmed. I've got an idea on some of the big projects that I think we all know won't be happening to the level that we'd anticipated. This building, for instance.
My point being there through chairs, as we run through towards our end of year functions, we're really going to need to have a pretty good understanding of getting these things all in line because it has a significant flow-on effect to all this caution that we've heard here today on those matters is getting that lined up. So
Well, we want to be able to reflect it in the annual plan for starters, so we need to have that information, because that then has a flow-on effect to depreciation and cost of interest. And on top of that, and debt, but also, if you recall, we carried forward something like 16 million, I want to say this year. I would prefer to put what I can in the actual annual plan because that is much better model for us to manage and to reflect to you what's going on. And also then it's an agreed program of work recognising these things. And some of them are out of our control. It's not that we're not doing the work, it's that it's out of our control. But at least then you'll get to see the bulk of our work, what's left for this year. And we will continue then to signal that there will be some carry forward, because there will be some carry forward, but there'll be a chunk that we will now move across to the annual plans.
So can I suggest the May meeting, 22nd of May, there's another assets meeting that we try and
For that,
meet
yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks' time is definitely enough time.
Okay.
to do that.
Thank you. Thanks.
William, can I ask, with costs going up, our inflationary, when do we adjust for inflationary adjustments?
A good question, and then I checked in with my team recently to make sure that we'd inflated everything in the long-term plan for capital programs which we have. Where it starts to get challenging is the fact that we've budgeted for this year at today's rate, and what we move into next year will have to allow an inflationary component as part of that annual plan. Otherwise, we're setting us up to fail.
Chair, if I may make an observation there too, we've got to remember we redo the LTP every 3 years. So that 3-year window is more accurate than the 10-year window, and we will update that at the 3-year stage, so we kind of keep up with what inflation is doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Councillor Loudon.
The land purchase for the Martin to Bulls wastewater project, are the loans reflected in this table here, loans by activity?
The external, it's under this. Wastewater sewage disposal.
And so in concept, with local water done well, does that indicate that that land will then be transferred as a title to the entity?
Correct.
No more questions, then have we received everything we're supposed to? So I'd like to recommend that the report of financial snapshot February 2025 be received. Seconder, please. Thank you, councillor Charland. All those in favour? Carried. Moving to item 8.2, Treasury and Debt, page 71 of our audit paper. Welcome back.
So I would like to, I don't have anything major to comment on here. Just any questions?
Any questions around this item?
My questions that are raised before because it was an associated subject, absolutely live here. There's no way in heck that we're going to get near a $75 million loan position.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Carter.
49 million currently in tax and interest. Expense of 2.3 million per month. Nothing is quite right. A line on page 32.
2.3 annual interest cost, annual.
The writing up that in comment 5.2 says per month.
Oh, it does too. Sorry, it does too. My apologies here. 2.3 million per month.
Oh, sorry, brilliant.
Should be per
My
annum.
apologies.
Like that error. That's spotting councillor Carter.
Yeah.
I look
You
at
check that.
I clearly look at pictures.
Okay, if there's no more queries, have you got something, councillor Wilson, looking at me like that?
Yes, I was looking at you and sorry, on page, there was a comment on page 20. I had it right here in front of me, give me a moment. Thought it was a great line, variation in the roading report, roading and footpaths.
Previous item, I think.
Oh, previous item,
Is that the previous item?
page 20.
Page 20, I don't think is what you're referring to.
Yeah, roading and footpaths,
Yeah,
where,
that was the previous item. That was the attachment for the previous item.
I won't raise it then if you've dealt with it.
We're quite happy to.
Well, it was just under other expenses, and I think I know the answer to it, but it's perhaps the way you've explained it. It's got variance is due to differences in the 23-24 seasonality assumptions. Now, I know we make lots of assumptions, and I'm assuming the seasonality assumptions refers to assuming that the weather allows us to do the capital work. Is that what I'm reading into?
Correct, so our system allows us to mimic last year's expenditure pattern.
Yes.
And so to do that, we're assuming that we'll spend, the weather pattern will be the same, and of course it's not. So what I was trying to explain, because it came up last month, is that the reality is we've got no idea when we set budgets. We could do 1/12, we could do seasonality. We're doing the best we can, but what I can look at is at the end of the year, we're on track to spend for the end of the year, and we're not on track to exceed our budget.
Just terminology that I haven't seen used.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to come up with the right words to explain it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship.
I'm not quite sure where to ask this question, but it seems to be in finance rather than QV section. If we were to, for instance, to change roading contractors, or roading contractors say, are there any likely liabilities or anything in those areas that we've faced?
Sorry, can you just ask the question again, please?
I'm not quite sure how to frame it myself, which is the issue. So if we were to change it, move into a new roading contract
Yes.
or contracts.
Yes.
Are there any financial issues associated with the transition?
Only if it exceeds.
Madam Chair, if I may have a comment that might help. The budget is set by what is approved through NZTA and the activity management plan in 3-year blocks. That's the budget. Can never exceed that. The aim that we have is to generate efficiencies, which means for the same dollar value, we can do more work in kilometres on the road.
Right.
But the budget is fixed.
So in terms of any contract changes, is there any penalties or, any costs to council? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Follow up line of thinking, Madam Chair, with finance later.
Thank you. Can I please have a mover and a seconder then for the receipt of the treasury and debt report? Thank you, councillor Carter. Seconder, please. Thank you, councillor Wong. All those in favour? Carried. So on to item 8.3, page 36, the QV report.
So the QV report is provided and due on for your information.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions on that matter? Okay. I please have a mover and seconder for that report. Thank you, councillor Wong. Seconded, councillor Carter. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Item 8.4 is around the rates for emissions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this report what we provide quarterly to the Finance and Performance Committee. There's a summary of rates and emissions for the past 12 months.
Through the chair, there's one recommendation I'd like to do with this particular report is move it to a financial year as opposed to a calendar year, because it'll be a lot easier to be able to sign off for the remissions for the financial year. And so with your agreement, I would be happy to start that kind of post 30 June and we'll do the financial year just to make that a bit more clear because it lines with the rates.
For sure. That makes sense. I was wondering whether on that table in page 42, whether it would be helpful to have, last year, the previous years, or so that we can get some sort of feeling of the trend there. Is that easy to add? Yeah. Thank you.
It's more value.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Just regarding that same table on page 42, 6 remission of penalties. There's a large number there. Is that a timing issue with when the penalties and when the APs, for example, might come in?
So it's a combination of things, but if they enter a payment plan, sometimes it's timing and they'll put it to the wrong account, and then we have to unpick that and then remit it because it's actually being paid. And sometimes there's genuine reasons that we have under our remission policy that we can actually do the remission.
Sometimes it's just errors in payments.
Councillor Wong.
Further on that, remission of penalties, I take it that the penalties aren't budgeted into the rates take, so therefore this wouldn't make any difference to the budget.
Through the chair, not 100% correct. If you look at our rates, if I look at the annual plan and I look at our rates intake, it doesn't match exactly to the buckets because we allow for remissions and penalties. So that's actually in our annual plans and our budgets. It's a best estimate because nothing is ever known.
Thank you, everyone. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for receiving this report, please? Councillor Wong, seconded councillor Moore. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Item 8.5, summary of debts.
This is the report we received, monthly report we received from DMC.
Debt Management Central.
Your worship.
Yeah, with regard to this item, there is one thing that I would like to raise councillors' awareness of, that it would need to be raised in public excluded because it involves a named company or individual.
Sure. So
How you want to deal with that whether it is at the end of this meeting and you come back to it, or whether you deal with it now, that sits with you, Madam Chair.
So we'll come back to this item and take it into public excluded at the end of this meeting. Is that all you need in terms of making that happen? Yeah. Okay, so then 8.6.
Page 46.
Thank you very much. Item 8.6 is on page 46. Back in performance report. Welcome, Sophia, to the table.
As per usual monthly report, take the report as read. I guess key highlights being that from a comms perspective, lots of water conversation in February, namely around Martin Water Strategy, the Martin Pool, and then towards the end of the month, preparation for local water and well consultation, which is currently open, as we talked about. From the community hubs perspective, what I thought was the most interesting and exciting is our induction of our wonderful youth council. Really awesome opportunity for us to work with the youth of Rangitike and get a fresh perspective from them. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Not so much a question here, but the youth council met last night and they are keen on doing a podcast, so passing on the information, it's fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Loudon?
I'm just interested really, the communication coming back to council regarding the Martin Pool. How's that sort of thing expressed? Are people concerned? Are people keen to have it sorted? Are people disappointed?
Through you, Madam Chair. We can probably provide a more specific report on the Martin Pool for next month, if that would be helpful. But in general, from my kind of broad awareness of what's been happening, I think, of course, when the decision was made to close for the year, the public were understandably disappointed. And we had lots of fantastic feedback when Rangitike College came on board and opened their pool. That was seen, in my view, as a great solution to what was a tricky situation for council. The feedback that we get fairly regularly on lots of our posts, especially when we're talking about water, is that the public are really interested to have the pool open as soon as possible. They see it as a useful asset, particularly for our Martin Bulls residents. That would be my starter for 10 on that one.
Excellent.
So a question from me, are we likely to see some information around how much that Rangitike College pool was used in absence of us being able to provide one? And when would that come to? Yeah.
Do you mean how many people used it at that time? We can make a request to the college to see if they've actually got those numbers. Obviously, I'll just send it out.
I think it would just help add to the picture. So in terms of a report coming back around the pool, I think that I don't think that we necessarily need that. But as we get into the decision around what the public would want, we can probably be more specific about what we require. Thank you. Yeah. Any other queries around public feedback and performance? Councillor Wong.
Just have a comment further on the His Worship's comment about the Youth Council. The induction was last night and there were 6 from Taihape and 5 from, but they're a very enthusiastic bunch. I didn't get to say anything because they just really, it's quite enlightening and they've built on the momentum, so it'd be really good if you all get in the area, but it was great to see. We all sung on the way home back to Taihape, and I apologise, but I encouraged them. It was great.
I haven't been to a youth meeting this year, but I'd like to pass on a comment from the mayor. He's heard from a previous youth councillor, who is now working in local government and, you know, to get the enthusiasm around the sector, I think that's a great outcome for our youth council, and like to acknowledge what they do in the community to spread the word and thank them for their efforts. Councillor Wilson,
If I can find a quick, go to other people first.
Councillor Wilson.
No, I was just really going to thank the comms team for their quick actions and decisive communications out to the community regarding rubbish recently. The community's found itself in a difficult spot, and many of our residents have, but I think your communications have been key to getting that matter established. So once again, well done to the comms team for that. Top work.
We'll keep moving. And take the pressure off you, Your Worship.
Now,
Okay.
right. So this is from a young lady called Hunter. Morena Andy, it has been a long time. I was on the Rangitika Youth Council in 2019. 4 year long ago, science degree later, I've started working as an advisor to the local board on Waiheke Island. Your and Nadia Gower's mentorship was a huge part of why I was so interested and passionate about this role. Thank you for the council for giving me the opportunity to be involved in local government all those years ago. It's absolutely paid off. I hope you're doing very well. I thought that was delightful. And it's something that she was happy for me to use and present to the youth council. So whether comms want to pick that up. Lovely piece from a young lady 4.5 years later.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm happy to move that the public feedback and performance report February 2025 be received. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Carter by Whisker. All those in favour? Carried. So, yes, so we'd like to move into publicly exclusive. Just read down this. So we have a recommendation in front of us that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting. It's around the summary of bad debts, the general subject matter of each matter to be considered while the public is excluded, the reason for passing this resolution in relation to each matter, and the specific grounds under section 48 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act for passing of this resolution are as follows. So we need to go into publicly excluded around this to discuss commercial information.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Carried.